Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. This is Chris Frew with BioBuzz. Very excited to be back doing our What's the Buzz podcast and interview series. This is actually the first one, Kelly, since we have taken a little summer break. So you're the first one to kick off our fall series. It's crazy to say fall, but it's my pleasure to welcome Kelly Schulz, CEO of Maryland Tech Council, to today's program.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much, Chris. Happy to open up your season for you as I'm sitting at the beach right now for the Mako conference. So it doesn't feel like fall yet here, but we're getting there.
Well, make sure you soak in the last amount of summer that you can down there.
That's right.
So for everyone joining us, this is our What's the Buzz series. This is an opportunity for us to interview ecosystem builders and ecosystem leaders. But I mean, if there's ever an ecosystem builder in Maryland, I think, Kelly, you fit that bill. So we talk about the people, the companies, the programs that are really building our bioinnovation ecosystem. So before we jump in, I want to make sure I thank our sponsor for this series, which I like to say, Kelly, is the literal ecosystem builder for our region, which is CRB. So if you're not familiar with CRB, just look around the I-270 corridor or throughout Maryland, Philadelphia, and North Carolina, because they've built most of the manufacturing and laboratory buildings that you see out there. They're a design, build, and construction firm who we've had the pleasure of working with as a sponsor and a partner for going on 10 years. So thank you to CRB, who is, again, the literal ecosystem builder in our region that gives us the facilities that all of our scientists and engineers work in. So today, Kelly, we are talking about Maryland's Bio Innovation Advantage. That's the cool title we came up with.
I like that title.
Why don't we start off? It's a little bit past mid-year. Tell us what's new at MTC these days.
So much is new. We've had a super busy year. We've had a super productive summer, so there has been no rest for the weary around the Maryland Tech Council. But I'm really excited just to do a little brief report out on what's been happening. So I have been with the Tech Council now, gosh, Chris, it's going to be 3 years in November. So since 2022, we have increased our membership by almost 50%. So we are over 850 members now, kind of expanding our sectors in which we've been working with outside of biotech and everything that's involved in the life science community and innovations like data centers, energy tech, clean energy, and all of that comes with it. So we're really excited about that. We've also increased our focus on, just because of the state of where we are right now, both the federal and the state level. We do have a lot of government affairs and public policy initiatives that we're working on. Obviously, there's a great initiative that we want to counteract most favored nations at the federal level and what's happening with that, and to give the perspective of our life science companies and what that looks like here in Maryland and how that could be detrimental to what we're doing. So our advocacy at the federal, state, and local level is just gearing up depending on the different policies that are being promoted. Also, this summer, we have launched, and yesterday was our great Eastern Shore Rural Technology Network launch down here at the beach. We received some funding from the USDA to promote rural technology across the state of Maryland. So we started a Western Maryland Tech Network and an Eastern Shore Tech Network. So we have boots on the ground in both of those areas, because I'm a firm believer that Maryland is an entire state of innovation and growth, and we have to take advantage of what all of those individual sectors are. I'm really excited about that. There's going to be lots more to come, but really thrilled that we've gotten so much active participation from folks all over the state that want to be able to just continue and grow that. For our existing members and for those members that might want to be members, there's a great program that we have with our cost savings program. So about a year ago, we partnered with Mass Bio and their cost savings program, which is led by Thermo Fisher. And that creates a great universal savings program for any member to be able to tap into that, literally saving thousands and thousands of dollars on all of your lab equipment if you are in, lab sciences, But, for those that might not have that initial need for that, there's other types of savings programs. I just found out, this is me being, a grandma, that I could get tickets to Great Wolf Lodge for like 50% off. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that. Right. So everyone's got to look into that. But also just today, big exciting stuff. We just are presenting a new economic study on data centers that just was released today. So this is hot off the press and new news for all of us.
That's amazing.
A lot of stuff going on.
I was gonna say, like, do you guys sleep over there at the Tech Council? Because that's a lot of different projects and things you're working on. So while everyone else has been on vacation this summer, you guys have clearly been busy.
We've been busy, but for a purpose.
Yeah.
Right. Because we really believe in Maryland. We believe in the multitude of ecosystem sectors that we have here, and we want to be a part of pulling that together and helping to advance that in times that are a little challenging for some of our members in those sectors, right? So it's even more important now than ever for us to be a part of what's happening.
Yeah, I like to say, and I think a lot of people can agree, like when times are tough is when you need community the most. And, an 800 member community, is really positioned to help one another, especially now when you can, that's really awesome news. So you have like mountain to shoreline coverage of Maryland now, right? So that's a big reach that the Tech Council has kind of expanded to over the past couple of years.
You know what? And I would say yes. I would like to think that the Maryland Tech Council has always had that reach out into other locations outside of kind of the central part. But we're a nonprofit organization, right? I mean, we can only have so many feet on the ground in certain areas. And even though Maryland is a small state geographically, there's a lot of grounds to cover. So we went to actually Congressman Andy Harris a couple of years ago and said, hey, listen, we really want to be able to have this outreach and provide the types of resources that we can and networking opportunities that we can get to in other parts of the state that we know have great opportunities for that as well, right? So, and he worked with us, and we worked with the U.S. Department of Agriculture and their rural program, and so we got some funding in order to be able to create these opportunities for the rural parts of the state that really are underrepresented in the way where people understand and notice the types and the amount of innovation that's happening in these areas. And there is a lot. And we don't want to recreate what they're doing. We just want to emphasize what they're doing in order to be able to help with their expansion and their growth. Yeah.
Amplify the work and connect them to the right resources to make it more successful.
That's right.
And there's very few states that can, we have certain assets in the state, right? So a lot of times when you think of life sciences, often in Maryland, you're thinking of biotechnology and biopharmaceuticals because we have such great assets around NIH, and that's like the core of our state. But there's huge opportunity in biotechnology and life sciences around aquaculture and around agriculture and plant science, and Maryland is one of those most diverse states, right? Like you think about how much farmland we have and how much waterways we have here. So I think that initiative really kind of helps to diversify our ability to innovate in a lot of these areas beyond like what's traditionally kind of this life science kind of core nucleus.
You know what? That is so important. And I think that when we talk about the growth in the different types of innovation that's happening, it's never ending, right? I mean, it is just consistent. I think it's incumbent upon associations and those that are out there promoting the bio sector to understand, just like digital sciences, everything is changing every day, right? And so how do you really capture what your specific, in my case, my specific membership looks like if there are innovators doing different things every day? So to stay, pigeonholed into one spot and simply promote those areas that we're most accustomed to promoting, it kind of stops us from our internal growth as well, right?
Yeah, well said. Well, I think I want to make a little plug here too, while we're talking about kind of, bringing people together and bring, the convergence of all these fields, because Bioinnovation Conference is coming up in just a couple of weeks, right? So I know that's a place that that's an event I've gone to for years, and it is kind of one of those places where you will kind of, bring together a lot of these different convergent things that are all impacting innovation in Maryland. So that's coming. What, it's 20. Remind me the date. It's coming up on the.
It is September 4th.
September 4th, coming up.
It's early this year. Yeah, it's early this year. So some people may not realize that the cutoff date for registration is coming up pretty soon. We typically have it in October, and just scheduling purposes, we moved it up to September this year. But I'm super excited about that. I would say there's going to be some possibly cutting edge conversations that are happening, right? So one of our fireside chats is going to be with FDA Commissioner Macri. And I think our universe of members are really looking forward to hearing some, just straight up conversation about what's happening at the FDA and what the future is for our folks here in research and development and everything that we can do to bring real good human solutions.
Yeah. What an amazing opportunity that is. I mean, I think from location standpoint and proximity, we do benefit from the proximity of the FDA around here, but an opportunity for members and attendees to really hear authentically about what's going on, breaking through some of the noise. I know just talking to our clients and things like that, that's such a question on people's shoulders and in their minds right now. So that's incredible that you're having, that fireside chat. I think a lot of people will probably be really interested in that.
I think people will be. There's a lot of questions, and Chris, you know this, right? So the environment and the ecosystem in which we work every day, it's a little unstable at this point in time, right? And I'm not going to say now more than ever, because that seems very alarmist, but it is much different than we thought a place in which we were going to be at 2 years ago, right? So we were in a position coming out of COVID where capital was easing up a little bit, right? And investors were looking at, some really cool things to do. And finally, some funding was becoming available. And now people are unstable again. They're just uncertain. So the level of uncertainty has risen to a point of being able to answer and to address those concerns and where we can go from here and how we get ourselves back to a level of certainty for these businesses that are really doing creative, innovative things for all of us.
So what are you hearing from your members around that? I mean, can you talk a little bit about kind of the state of life sciences and just in general, like here in Maryland or in general, like to your point, there's been a lot that have been thrown at the industry, from funding cuts in the federal government to layoffs that have a impacting Maryland, oversized impact in Maryland, to you mentioned this earlier, the most favored nation conversation. So can you talk a little bit about like what your members are sharing and what others should know if they're not aware of that?
Yeah, there's a couple of things, some specific to Maryland, some just overall nationwide conversations that are happening. I would say specific to Maryland, the prescription drug affordability conversation is still huge. I would say now more than ever. There are actually 2 drugs now in the state that are up for regulatory assignment when it comes to their upper price limits. So Maryland could be the first state in the nation to actually dedicate UPLs for specific drugs. That's a concern. That's a concern not just for those 2 drugs and those 2 drug companies, but it's a concern for all of the industry as to what they do in the state of Maryland and how they manage their investment dollars. I think that is something that Maryland has to work on. There are obviously other states that have gone down this path, but not at the pace that Maryland has at this point. Along the same lines of pricing is the most favored nation pricing. And that is a federal proposal being put forth by the Trump administration. And I think that there's a lot of concern with that, particularly as it relates to losing our competitiveness with other countries like China. I'll just call that out. For the first time in history, China has more clinical trials than the United States. I think that that's something for all of us to keep an eye on. This is a global community, and we have to fight in order to be able to retain the talent and the IP that we have here in the States. I would say that's one of the biggest. I've always been a cheerleader for the state of Maryland and the resources that we have. Always talked about, NIH and FDA and NCI and all of those assets and resources that we have. Now we have to start thinking outside of that and say, okay, what are these homegrown assets that we don't have to be as dependent on the federal assets to be able to, accentuate the positives that we have here in Maryland. So that's what we're trying to work hard on. And I know BioBuzz works hard on that as well. And it's great to have you as a partner in order to get that messaging out.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah, you mentioned China, that's on a lot of people's minds that I hear about. And I think that, these policies, federal and stateside, it all adds up, right? We know there's not one thing that, will make an ecosystem, shoot up or kill it. But these are all things that kind of add up together. I read, again, China's, index is up 144% for the year, where the U.S. is pretty flat. And we haven't had a U.S. IPO for 6 months in biotech. So these are all signals that, I think are things that we need to all take into account. And things like the PDUFA, or things like the prescription drug and most favored nation that you all are advocating for now, that contributes to these things. That contributes to the stability, right? I don't know if you hear that from your members or not, but if things aren't stable, they're not going to go public, right? And they're not going to, if they think that, they're going to lose $1 billion in revenue because they have to drop prices and it's not going to get covered for insurance, then how are companies investing? So that's what your advocacy arm does, right? That's what you're doing, down in DC and down in Minneapolis
every day. And you're exactly right. And you hear of different parts. And I was having a conversation the other day with one of our members, and talking about the growing impact of rare disease research, right? And what that really means to people, right? So that is a growing part, I think, of what we have here in Maryland as an asset that we can look and grow upon. But that takes research dollars, right? That takes investment in infrastructure, and we just want to be able to continue to manage that because that is such a big part of, I think, our future. But, to the point of, kind of like that global economy, I was at the Bio conference in Boston. We had a wonderful event there. We had a great placement on the floor as exhibitor, and the state of Maryland was very well represented between us and the Department of Commerce. But I'll tell you who had the hugest presence there: Korea, Saudi Arabia, even Canada, Ireland, right? So they're all coming here and really understanding where we are with what we might be able to lose, and they're willing to pick that up very quickly. And so I'm excited that we are engaged in that conversation. And I am so sorry, I have to pause just for 1 second, Chris. Fill it up with a commercial advertisement. Will you please?
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, absolutely. So what Kelly was talking about, I'll just comment to and attest to as well when she gets back. Again, we'll pause for a commercial advertisement. I want to also make sure everybody knows that while the Bioinnovation Conference is coming up on September 4th, the TEDCO Entrepreneur Expo is also coming up in October. So there's another great conference. So two organizations have an oversized impact on Maryland and the economy in Maryland, as the Maryland Tech Council and TEDCO. So I hope that those are two different conferences that you will think about.
I'm so sorry. Even though I put the do not disturb sign on the door, they still were pounding and wanted to clean my room. So I apologize to everyone for that.
No worries.
But going back to, can I just talk about the international thing just for 1 quick second, Chris?
Yeah,
so
sure.
For the folks that we're losing that have left NIH or FDA or NCI or some of our other research institutions, there's a lot of people out there looking for other research projects, right? And they have a lot of intellectual property that comes along with that. they don't have the companies right now, not even just in Maryland, but in other parts of our country that are picking up that slack for, let's just say, those PhDs, right? That level of researcher. So those global entities are picking up our intellectuals and taking that to other countries and paying them an awful lot of money for a couple of years to help them get started in what could be their new biotech industry sectors out there. And I think that is one of our greatest risks, is being able to lose that intelligence within these sectors and what we can do to continue growth.
I'm so happy you said that. I mean, as someone who runs a recruiting company, I've been reached out to by groups in India and Saudi Arabia, Korea, to find talent for 2-year contracts, and in this industry, exactly what you said, the asset is the people. Like that's the asset. That's what they bring, the innovation, they bring the ideas, they bring the experience, the know-how. And I share your concern, Kelly, and I hope that these are some things that we can respond to quickly, because Maryland has one of the largest global concentrations of PhDs in life science engineering in the world. But, we, for the first time, I think we're in a position where we could lose that. And once you lose that, I think it's really hard for us to regain that. And I think that's something I do want everybody to hopefully take away and hear and advocate for with their representatives, just as much as you are in Annapolis and DC right now. I think everybody needs to be loud at this point about, coming up with creative solutions, not fully dependent on the government, but being creative about how we retain our most critical asset, which is our people.
It is. And so, I don't want to be just a negative Nelly, right? Maryland still is the 3rd largest biotech ecosystem in the country, right? We're 3rd behind, obviously, Boston and California. And so we get that we have more assets here than what we're specifically talking about right now. But like I mentioned this morning at, the conference here in Ocean City, it's not so much about attracting business right now. It's about retaining the business that we have and doing what we can in order to be able to just keep the peace until kind of this all blows over. And so I think we have to have a community-wide effort and understanding to say, okay, what is it that we have to do right now to make sure that some of our biggest names in biotech right now actually stay here? And that's what we're actively, wanting to work on as well. We can always talk about the investments that are being made in other states outside of Maryland, but let's keep the fabric of what we have right now growing strong. And I think that's what this community, ultimately can do together to do that.
Yeah. And again, a good time to come together to focus on that, like continue to do what we can. And there are bright spots, right? So we don't want to be like, oh, woe and negative. And like AstraZeneca is opening just, this year and into next, a $300 million state-of-the-art cell therapy facility right here in the heart of Maryland. And Syngene, one of India's largest CDMOs, just opening up in Baltimore right now with 300 potential.
Yeah, jobs. And they moved into that existing Bayview spot over by the Emergent location, and Bora took over the other Emergent location in Baltimore. A year ago or so, and so there are positive things that are happening with the existing infrastructure that we have, right? And huge thanks to them, right? Getting us to understand that perhaps more infrastructure needs to be, kind of invested in. That's like step 2. But right now, filling up the infrastructure that we have, I think, is super important. And folks like your CRB are helping to do things like that. So thanks for always sponsoring BioBuzz CRB. But I think too, it's really important to understand. I'm just going to switch to like the workforce development part of it for a minute, because a lot of those people that we talk about in our major industries with that sector, they also need to be able to make sure, and this is an advantage that Maryland has, right? So Maryland has a workforce advantage. We have a plethora of really smart people that can work in that environment, in that lab space environment, and in the R&D space. And we have to take full advantage of that. But we also have to make sure that we are preparing those for the future in whatever additional expansions or attractions might be made, right? And so to have that backfill. So I'll just put a little bit of plug in for our BioHub program, our training center that we have in Montgomery County, sponsored by all of our major biotech industry partners, for the sheer fact that we are filling a gap in that entry-level position in that manufacturing environment to provide career-altering pathways for many, many people in Maryland to get involved in an industry that I believe is the growth part of what Maryland can do to regain some revenue. So we're really excited about the growth at BioHub that we've had since we officially opened our offices there and started training in October. We've just come leaps and bounds, and I'm really proud of that.
That's awesome. So yeah, I agree. I'm glad you moved to BioHub, and we can talk about that, because I think that's an important distinction to make, and an emphasis on, again, focusing on what we are doing great as a state and what is our strength. I know you had a program in partnership with Macrogenics just a month or so ago, and I've seen a lot of different programmings come through. And so I think it's important, and you can emphasize this, I think, that to understand that while there's a lot of kind of challenges on the R&D and PhD levels, and a lot of people are still having a hard time hiring in manufacturing. So manufacturing, it's kind of like an interesting environment now where CGMP jobs and stuff are still really hard to fill, and it's still a high demand for them, while some of the earlier stage and research stage stuff is having. So again, I don't want to paint the doom and gloom, because in manufacturing is a growth area that, and you look at the investment, I mean, we're doing a report that'll come out in September where we have $180 billion of U.S. investment in a CapEx manufacturing environments, including the $300 million that AstraZeneca is putting in. And so your work at BioHub, I think, I just want to emphasize that so everybody's clear, like that is that's a really critical component to what makes Maryland succeed.
Yeah, I agree. And, the whole purpose behind BioHub was, the initial report that came out through the Milken study, asking the industry, where are your gaps? What can we do in order to be able to support your future growth? And this was the main component on how to continue to move forward in this industry. And so we're really excited about it. We have this summer, we've had for 4 weeks, 4 different training modules for Bowie State University for their undergraduate and graduate students, for them to have some hands-on experience in the laboratory environment. And so they're going to be coming back year after year. They love the program so much. Working with WorkSource Montgomery for underemployed and unemployed workers that are going through their system to get them into a different type of a career pathway. There's just so many great opportunities that we can utilize these services for. And that is what eventually, when we're looking at attracting new businesses, right, they're looking for differentiators in those areas of workforce to say, how can we get started up without having to spend a year training an entire cadre of workers to come in? But we're ready.
Yeah. And that you're getting the workforce ready so people can come in, and we have infrastructure here, like Syngene is showing us, and Bora, and AstraZeneca. So the infrastructure is ready. Now you guys are making sure the workforce is ready.
That's right. That's right. And some of those industry partners, we'll be announcing some really great workforce strategies with them specifically. So we're really excited about some announcements that we're going to have for some of these new folks that are coming into Maryland, and what we can do to support them and provide jobs at really high wages. This is not living wage opportunities that we're providing. These are really life-altering, family kind of changes that we're putting out there. So we're excited.
That's great. So a lot of this, just in the fleeting moments we have together, you called this earlier on too, Kelly. You're like, 30 minutes. Are you sure that's enough? We could talk for, we have chats longer than that. But we are coming up towards the 30 minutes, and I want to be respectful of your time down the Mako conference. A lot of this people can continue to talk about and learn about on September 4th, right? So Bioinnovation Conference is coming up September 4th. Hopefully you all heard a teaser of some of the important things that are being talked about that we can dive into. I'm really excited about the Fireside chat with FDA Commissioner Makery. That's for sure. You also have, I think, a first ever startup zone. Do you want to touch on that before?
Yeah, so we got some funding, so everybody's familiar with the exhibit hall that we have, but we wanted to do something a little bit different for our entrepreneurs that may not be in that same funding category. So for each of our largest events that we have at the Maryland Tech Council, for 5 of our events, we're going to have 5 startups that are going to be chosen to exhibit for free. And they're going to be in our startup zone, so everybody can come and visit them. And then at the end of our conference year, we'll have all of those startups. We'll have a little demo day for all of them together and really highlighting some of the really great entrepreneur, innovative folks that are here in our community. So we're excited about that.
That's really exciting. Yeah. So we got Fireside Chat, Startup Zone, and then a keynote with Adam Epstein.
Yeah, also. So Adam Epstein, it's going to be so cool. So he is our keynote speaker. He's going to give a really candid discussion. I love candid discussions because nobody wants to put airs on, about investors and what they actually look for and think about in your company and all of that. So it's going to be a great no miss event. So everybody come join us on September 4th and go on our website, mdtechcouncil.com, so you can sign up.
That's awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to it. For years, it's been, again, that convening place at the industry. And this year, I think more than ever, with a lot of stuff we talked about today. And it sounds like you've architected this year's event to really talk to some of these key things that everybody's concerned with. Again, startup funding, FDA, what's happening there, and again, the traditional programming that you do. I know cell therapy track, biomanufacturing track, a lot of things that your members and everyone in the region are really concerned about. And I know you get a lot of attendance from outside of Maryland too, which is a testament to, again, just the programming that you put together.
Yeah, I'm having a great panel actually with the CEO of Mass Bio and the CEO of Virginia Bio. And so we're just going to sit and we're going to talk like bio association stuff for a couple minutes. It's going to be fun. Yeah, we're going to have a good time.
That's great. Well, I look forward to seeing you there. Kelly, thanks for chatting with me today and being part of What's the Buzz. Really, I always enjoyed talking with you. And again, I always appreciate your leadership in what you're doing at the Tech Council to help support Maryland's economy this year, especially. We need a little extra support, but there are some really great things you're doing. And again, I appreciate you guys working hard over the summer while we were all taking vacation to get as much moving as you have.
We're happy to do it and always happy to partner with you, Chris. And thank you so much to BioBuzz for all of your, extended partnerships throughout the years. So thank you so much.
Yeah, our pleasure. Well, thank you all for joining us today on this conversation with Kelly. We will be back again. We've got a lineup that we're putting together for the fall. Kelly, thank you for breaking the ice and getting us back in the swing of things for our fall season of What's the Buzz. But we've got some guests coming from Richmond and Virginia area, from Pennsylvania, and we're trying to get some other groups from around the state also to share different perspectives, as well as some investors that are going to be on also. So I think the fall is going to be really fun for us, but we kicked it off with a bang. So thank you again, Kelly, for sharing the time today and again, everything you do. We'll be back in a week.
Thanks.
So we'll see you then. Thank you.